Hey there guys, DMO73 here, bringing you another feature match for the week. I am playing against my buddy Caleb Gothberg, who is playing Force of Will Tavern's Reflect Refrain, the list that they took, that Zach Sufford took to win nationals with. He's playing the list. This is post Reflect Refrain errata, and I am playing a blue-black Dark Alice list that was made by my friends over with Team Ogre. My buddy Anthony and Team Ogre created this list and let me take it for a spin. Very different take on Dark Alice. I'm very happy. So it was a lot of fun to play, and so you'll see why here in a little bit. So right off the bat, I hit that little red, the pure stone I call black, and I play Scorn of Dark Alice, revealing 3 Percivals, a Change the World, and a Gerda. So obviously I'm going to get hit the Gerda, because hitting up one of the 3 Percys really doesn't make much sense. And then I'm going to pass to Caleb. He gets his own little red the pure stone, which is actually the worst stone for him to get off the top, because that means he has to call white in order to be able to make a play this turn, permanently locking him out of being able to double pump Lancelot, which is just unfortunate. So plays the Percival and hits Thunder, Thunder, Orb, Thunder, and Hera, which means he has to grab the Orb. So pretty bad whiff with the Percival as well. So actually decides to go up to 2 orbs, and then he filters with Reflect Refrain. You see he gets into that another Gerda in his hand and sends away one of those other 2 Percivals. He doesn't really need them, and just go ahead and plays those 3 orbs. So right off the bat, he's got 3 orbs in play, which means he's going to getting a lot of counters. So I'm going to have to worry about that as we move forward. So I decided to go ahead, and because he has a creature and I don't, and I kind of want to disrupt some more stuff, I play Soul Hunt. This will make me have to discard 1 card. I'm going to go ahead and discard that Levitine that's in my hand, and forces him to discard one of his cards. I actually make him get rid of the other Gerda. So now again, he just has Percival in his hand, which puts me in a much better position in the fact that I'm not going to have to really deal with a turn 2 beater unless he just happens to have Lance. But I know that he probably still has a Percival in his hand unless he filters it away. So I'm pretty secure at this point. So Caleb hits that Moonshade off the top. Pays white to play his 3rd Percival. That 3rd Percival came out. I'm going to respond to the Percival effect. I want to go ahead and just get it off the board, so I go ahead and use Unseen Pressure, which will kill the Percival. He'll still get the effect, but I just wanted to get it off board. In this situation, I probably could have just waited and played the... and used that other stone in order to exile one of his cards to help set up Dark Alice, but I really just wanted to keep his pressure off the board at all, especially if he sets up a Lance next turn. So he reveals Death Scythe, Percival, Hera, Lance, and Gareth. So this is why I wanted to be able to make sure that that Lancelot couldn't be like protected as easily by a Percival, and so I'm not taking 800 damage next turn as opposed to, 1,000. If he pumps up the Lancelot. So he does grab the Lance, but that means I'm still safe for the turn, because he can't play it this turn. So going into my turn, I tap for the other stone. I'm going to go ahead and play Allura. This lets me search for another vampire. Debating whether or not I want to grab Carmilla yet or not. I decided that it's probably better to do some deck thinning, and I do go ahead and grab the 2nd Laura. Knowing that he's not going to be able to double pump next turn makes me feel pretty confident with Laura, and the fact that he's not going to be able to really, most likely, burn Laura out, and so she's going to be able to service a blocker for that Lancelot he has in his hand. So he's going to pay 200 before the upkeep to draw a card. So he's trying to refill that hand a little bit. Taps for a third stone to just get the Ruler's Memoria. Pays 200 for the 2 red. Brings out a Lancelot and attempts to swing in. Block with the Laura. Again, that was what I was intentionally going to do, to stop that card from getting really into play. So I take advantage of the floating stone to remove a card from his grave, take out one of the Gerdas, start setting up those Dark Alice plays. Tap for another stone, finally hit a blue-black, but I'm going to go ahead and just play my 2 black stones. I think about playing the Schrodinger. Oh yeah, I do. I play the Schrodinger here. Helps me set up for a future turn. And then I follow it up with playing the Laura because Schrodinger can be played immediately. If I had a Stoning to Death in my hand, I probably would have saved it. Saved those extra stones to be able to do something. But this way I can search for Carmilla to be better prepared for next turn. So even though there's the potential of that Lancelot being, protected or followed up with something to get rid of that Laura, get the damage in, I'm not too concerned because I haven't taken any damage yet. So I'm pretty comfortable searching for that heavy hitter with Carmilla. And you see I have that Levitine in my hand, so I'm feeling pretty safe in the fact that if I need to next turn, I can just try to make a play in terms of going for removed cards and putting pressure on with Dark Alice if I need to. So Caleb's up to 8 counters, pretty significant for Dark Alice, or for a Reflect Refrain right now with the setup he has. Gonna play Flame King Shout, which he's gonna kill. He's gonna have to pay 200 to do that. And it's gonna kill my Laura and bring out a Gareth. So I know I'm about to take some damage here, but I'm okay with that. Because now there's 5 cards in his grave, so if I wanted to, I can swing back pretty hard and have 5 cards removed in order to be able to have a automatic 15-15 or 14-14 Dark Alice without having to worry about that Reflect Refrain. So drawing into turn. So I got 2 Levitines in hand, so even though he does have a lot, and he would be able to cancel, my hope is to try and kind of put him in a position where he doesn't want to cancel the Levitines. But just to make sure that I can make a secure play happen, I play flip over Dark Alice with 5 cards now removed, so she's a 14-14 when she comes in. And then before I declare the number that I'm going to destroy, Caleb's actually going to search. In this position, searching for a Glimpse of Kaguya is probably the best bet, just so that he has protection from a next turn God's Art, because Glimpse of Kaguya can cancel a God's Art, which is pretty effective, especially against Dark Alice when she's trying to pull out her second Schrodinger from the deck and get to a position where she's suddenly a 19-19. The thing is, even if a God's Art is canceled, you can't ever activate it again. So if you can glimpse it the first time I use it, then I'm just out of luck. So now that that's resolved, I'm going to go ahead and declare 3. I'm going to play the Levitine. If he decides not to let it go through, I was aware of that he possibly could try to untap and cancel with his Reflect, but he decides not to. So I'm going to go ahead and kill his Lancelot with my Swiftness from that Levitine. So what he's gonna do there, he's gonna pay 1 counter to untap, and then put another 2 counters on her, and then do a second search before the end of his turn, and then flip back over. So pretty good. He spends a lot of counters, but it does set him up for a power to be able to crack back at me next turn. with Dark Alice being the 14/14, I'm not feeling too worried. He's going to have to spend a lot of resources in order to be able to kill her, and I do have a way to give her imperishable. So unless he searched for a Death Scythe, I'm feeling okay with what's going on. So before he draws, what I actually do is I'm going to go ahead and pump up Dark Alice. Because I have the second Levitine in my hand, I'm going to go ahead and pump up Dark Alice's damage for the turn and give her that imperishable. So now she's 14/14, dealing 1600, and she has imperishable. At this point, I'm kind of forcing him to have the Death Scythe in order to be able to answer my Dark Alice, which is probably going to happen because of the fact that he did that double search. But I'm pretty comfortable and okay with that if that's what he goes for. Because again, even with Death Scythe, he's going to have to spend a lot of resources to be able to kill that Dark Alice, and the fact is, those are resources that he's probably going to lose, like Lancelot's and things like that. Or spend his whole turn to thunder her to death, in which case, that's a lot of time and resources that he's used just to deal with Dark Alice. So he taps for stone, hits another Ruler's Memoria. Plays Lancelot. Defining Dark Alice's stats for Caleb. He's gonna go ahead and pump up Lancelot for 200. I'm trying to make sure I can read Lancelot properly in terms of if anything else comes out. He wouldn't be able to. He has no real way to burn her for Dark Alice for any kind of damage. So I think Caleb's thinking at this point whether or not he wants to swing in and provide some backup or just wait and see what happens next. Because Dark Alice has target attack already, waiting and seeing with Lancelot isn't always the best option. So he's going to go ahead and swing in for 800 damage, which I'm going to accept, putting me down to 18. At this point, Caleb makes kind of an interesting move. He pays 200 to play Hera. He doesn't have the Glimpse in hand, so I guess that kind of makes sense to put on pressure. So this is going to take him down to 32. He can choose to pop one of his own orbs, but there's really no point in that. Unless he really wants to draw into cards, but he's putting himself in a position where he's currently tapped out. You can see he has those two thunders in his hand. Passes to me, so I draw in. At this point, because he's tapped out, I know I'm going to be able to make a Godzar play this turn, which actually puts me in a really strong position. Because he has no way to cancel it, so now he has a permanent -2/-2 to his entire board state until the end of the game, and I get a second Schrodinger, which instantly makes Dark Alice 19/19. So she's, at this point, pretty much unkillable, because both Schrodingers will give her an extra 5/5 pump, because I have 5 of his cards removed. I'm going to follow that up by playing my own Hera to pop one of his orbs and help me draw into some cards. This is probably why he didn't play Scythe last turn, because he didn't want it to get destroyed by my own Heras, especially when he sees that blue. So you see I have Unseen Pressure, Stoning to Death, Carmilla, and Levitine. So right now I'm deciding whether I want to try to go at attack his face directly for all that damage, or if I want to try to kill one of his creatures and just like permanently clear his board, or clear off his board. So I'm gonna go ahead and play the Levitine. I'm gonna swing in. See, I start to think about killing the Lance, but I know the Lance is only a 400/400 and he has no way to buff it. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and attack him directly for 19. Which puts him down to 13. I'm gonna use one will to go ahead and kill it with Unseen Pressure. So now Lance is just off the board. I only have one will open, which means I can't use anything that's in my hand, but I have that Hera, so I feel pretty comfortable. You see he's got that Sign of the Future in his hand. It's essentially a dead card at this moment because I'm just not playing Resonators. So he's got that Death Scythe. Swings in for 500. I go ahead and block with my Hera because I know my Hera is going to be able to kill it. Which he responds by pumping up his Hera so that we can trade. Because we're both 5/5s. Okay, we'll go ahead and place Death Scythe. And then flips over into Reflect, then passes the turn. So before I make any plays, I just try and push for lethal. And so what we see Caleb doing here is Caleb's actually searching for his third Thunder. But we miscalculated the fact that Dark Alice is actually a 19/19 instead of a 14/14. So even having triple Thunder is not going to be able to kill her. He would need all 4 of his Thunders. And so once he realizes that here in a second, he's actually going to just concede the game. So we'll be moving on to game 2 here in a second. And even if he had played a creature, because I had the Carmilla and the Stoning to Death in hand, I was in perfectly capable shape to be able to stop him. I could just play the Carmilla, especially since he had flipped over that Reflect, and just ended the game that way. So here we go, we're gonna go on to game 2. What I could have also done there is played the barrier to kind of force him to cancel it, if he wanted to kind of secure it, but I just decided, I knew that I had the game, and I just wanted to move forward, so I just went ahead and kept it. So I'm now gonna be on the draw in game 2. So, Caleb's going to play that orb off the top. So this game, I'm actually looking, you see I have that Soul Hunt in hand. That makes me feel pretty comfortable with whatever he's going to play. So he burns himself for 2 and plays the Percy. So with Soul Hunt, I'm able to, kind of punish him a little bit for being on the play. And put him in a position where he has a little bit of difficulty. So he almost grabs the Lance there. But he actually made the better choice in grabbing the Horn because I'm Dark Alice. So now at this point, if he plays a little preemptively and keeps it safe for when he needs it, he can shuffle his graveyard back into his deck, which prevents me from being able to remove it, and thus keeping me safe, keeping him safe from a Dark Alice flip. So I'm gonna play the Soul Hunt and get rid of the Scorn. I have 2 other Scorns in my hand, so I really feel like I don't need 3. He discards the Rapid Decay because it doesn't really do him much good at this point with no creatures, and he knows that I don't play a heavy creature base, so Rapid's not as important. But still, it sets him to the point where I'm technically, ahead of him card advantage wise. So he flips over, calls red, and then goes ahead and filters, trying to get into a Lancelot, but he does not have the luck, so he filters away the Levitine. Honestly, I probably would have kept that over the Death Scythe. Yes, Death Scythe is important to be able to stop me, but he does have the Horn to be able to prevent me from flipping, so I probably would have just kept the Lave in order to be able to make use of Reflect Refrain a little faster. So I play Scorn, one of the 2 Scorns, seeing that he has the Horn that I already knew of, Gareth and Bedivere, and then I go ahead and just use the other Scorn in my hand to get rid of Gareth or Bedivere as well. So just leaving him with 2 Regalia in his hand makes me feel pretty comfortable. Because he has to now rely on drawing into a Resonator to make a play happen rather than just sitting on a Lancelot. So pays 200 and taps and removes 2 counters from his Reflect to be able to draw a card. See him draw into that Percival. I believe he's got it's either I think it's a Gerda. Yeah, he draws into Gerda. So he plays the Percival with the Heat Ray. Reveals a Lancelot, which is unfortunate for me, because he's going to be able to play that this turn. Pays 200 to follow that up. Plays the Lancelot. And then this is actually probably one of the best moves that he makes here. He plays the Horn on his own turn and just immediately sacrifices it to shuffle his graveyard back in. So now going into my turn, I have to deal with those things on his board, and I don't have any way to start setting up Dark Alice. This is why I said that grabbing Horn at that point in time was really effective, just because of the fact that now I have to spend resources on answers, and I can't just have a mana sink in a sense because there's nothing for me to remove. So you see me kind of shortcutting some damage there. He pumps up Lancelot to do 800 damage. I have the Hera. I decide that because he only has the 1 Regalia, I kind of want to put him in a position where if he doesn't have some kind of answer for it. Well, at least I thought about doing that, but the Stoning to Death makes it so that it actually works better for me to possibly kill the Lancelot. And then I could possibly immediately remove that. So when I play the Stoning in response to him trying to attack, swings in for 200 with the Percival. Pays 200 to play Gerda. And what he does here is he removes the counter to give it swiftness, and then pumps it up with Reflect to get a counter back on it, and then pumps up again. So 1,000 damage from that Gerda. So a very, very big attack there. At this point, even though he only has the 3 counters, he goes ahead and decides to flip because he knows he can go to 4 and search next turn. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the Lancelot, finally getting a card off the board for card in the exile for Dark Alice. Pay 2 to pay my Hera to pop his orb. See him give it that 4th counter before it dies, so I can draw into a card. And I have Stoning in my hand, so I'm going to probably go ahead and hold on to that. So at this point, I'm feeling okay in the fact that I have a blocker to be able to deal with something. I have a Stoning to Death up in my hand to be able to deal with the Lancelot if it comes into play. Or if nothing does come into play, if he plays a little bit slower, then I can remove stuff from his graveyard and set up a Dark Alice a little easier. And I'm not going to lie, the fact that Caleb's been slowly burning himself with that Moonshade has been pretty helpful in keeping the game kind of even, because that means that I'm not the life point gap isn't as huge as it could be if he wasn't. So he draws into that Sign of the Future, which again really doesn't help him much. He taps and gets into the Ruler's Memorial, luckily just after playing the Death Scythe, so he doesn't have to waste the will. Plays that Rapid Decay to kill the Hera. Swings in with Gerda. Now I know he probably, it's a position where he probably could have a Lancelot here, but I have to decide whether or not I want to take the 600 damage from the Gerda, and I go ahead and do, which honestly I probably should have just Stoninged there, because there was a lot of damage. Here's the second point where I kind of misplay there. I should have just Stoning to the Gerda outright, and then taken the 400 damage, and I've been in a position where the Lancelot would come through, but now I would only be dealing with, one thing at a time. But I'm feeling okay with the fact that next turn I am going to be able to flip, and I do have a Levitine in hand, so I can kind of clear the board. So it's kind of a weird position for me to be in, but it's not awful. So I go ahead and play the Soul Hunt. I don't really need the Mephistopheles in my hand because I'm going for a Dark Alice play, so I'm not really terribly worried about discarding it. And this way I kind of force him to be in top deck mode with me. And I can remove 2 more cards to set up a Dark Alice play. And then play Cheshire Cat as backup. See, I have that Cheshire Cat in my hand. I go ahead and declare 2 to pop the Gerda, and then play Cheshire Cat. Draw into Mephistopheles and Death Scythe. I go ahead and put the Mephistopheles back on the top of my deck. And the reason why you see me play the Death Scythe as well is because I don't want him to immediately be able to flip that Reflect next turn. I want him to only have 1 card at his disposal during his turn to better secure my position. So he plays the Hera, targets the Death Scythe. So that's unfortunately one of the things that, if he did have it the top deck into a Hera, I was going to have to deal with getting popped Death Scythe, which is just part of it. And he does get to draw into a card, but I'm feeling still pretty good about this whole situation, especially when he decides to tap for a stone. because I know I'm drawing into a Mephistopheles, so I know that I'm going to be able to put on a huge beater next turn to back up my Dark Alice. Just going to go ahead and filter just to be able to get the extra counter on there. I'm going to go ahead and exile some cards I don't need, like all those Scorns from the beginning of the game, to bring back my Death Scythe, again, because I want to secure an uninterruptible ability next turn. You know, if he does make a big play, I don't want him to be able to immediately flip and deal with my Mephistopheles. But here's where I make a big misplay that I think kind of costs me this game. I would have been in a much better position, I think, if I had done this a little bit differently. So I play the Death Scythe, which is fine, and I play the Mephistopheles, which is also fine. The problem is I should have killed Hera here. I even start to go attack Hera, but I'm like, oh, I'm secure. And I forget the fact that I'm going to have to sacrifice that Cheshire Cat to Mephistopheles. I actually trick myself there. I'm thinking, oh, I've got Mephistopheles, I've got Cheshire Cat, I'll be fine. So I go and attack Caleb in the face, but that was my mistake because of the fact that I have to immediately lose that Cheshire Cat. And so now, if he has a second creature, I'm finished. So I essentially hand him the game at this point. And rather than just playing it a little bit safer, letting the turns kind of play out, and forcing him to have two things, because now I have to block with the Mephistopheles, otherwise he just pumps it and I lose, and then he just taps for a 6 stone and plays Susan and swings in. But in that same situation, if I had killed the Dark Alice, then Susan would have just had to trade with Mephistopheles and he would have taken more damage, and I would have been in fine shape. So we go into game 3. But that's okay. Game 3s are always fun. Both of us have mulliganed 3, so we'll see how the game goes. So tapping for my first stone, hitting a blue-black, and starting off with another Scorn, hitting a Gerda and a Hera. Hera is definitely the right card for me to hit here. I'm kind of debating back and forth. Gerda's definitely the right card for me to hit here over the Hera, because Hera, I can force Hera to be a dead card just by changing my play, whereas Gerda's never really dead, and so now he has, at the moment, he has no way to get a swiftness drop on me turn 2. So he plays that Change the World. He's going to go ahead and filter. See, he now has that glimpse of Kaki in his hand. He's probably never going to get rid of that, just because he knows he doesn't want to deal with the God's Art. Looks like he filters away the Levitine, taps for a stone, hits that Heat Ray off the top, and unfortunately has to pass. He doesn't really have any answer at this point. I get a Moonshade. I play my Hera to pop his Orb. Don't want him to get as little advantage off of that orb as possible, as well as put him in a position where if he doesn't have another Regalia, he could possibly hit some Ruler's Memoria and be in some trouble. Because you see, he has actually filtered away the Levitine. So he draws into turn, does a filter, filters away his Hera. Again, he knows that now that he knows that I have his. He knows that I can read the Hera play and not play Regalia. Hera kind of becomes dead for him. Plays a Percival. Gerda, Change the World, Death Scythe, Susan, and Sign of the Future. He's probably going to grab the change just because he knows he wants to get some more advantage back going on there. Or does he know I have a second Hera in my hand to be able to pop it? passes the turn to me. Now he could have Thundered here, but I think he's trying to save his Thunders to be able to deal with Dark Alice if she does come out, which is a smart idea for him. Dark Alice is a pretty big hitter, and to be able to suddenly stop her Stone Cold in her tracks is pretty powerful for him. So I do an interesting move here. I play Levitine, discard Levitine to produce red, and then use blue to be able to play the Hera to pop the other orb. I do this so that I can have 2 will left over to be able to play a Stoning in case he plays a Lance. I'm trying to be a little bit more proactive and a little bit, maintaining that advantage in such a way that, he, even if he plays the Hera, I can banish it to still make it a dead card. And now I'm sitting with 2 Resonators and a Stoning in hand to be able to, cover things up. Cover my bases in a sense. Draws into a Lancelot. Gets rid of the Flame King Shout. Really doesn't help him much right now. And the fact that it wouldn't kill any of my creatures. Taps for a stone. Hits, unfortunately, the Ruler's Memoria because he didn't have any Regalia to play. Plays the wrong card from his hand. Plays the Lancelot. I pay 200 life points there to stoning it to death. So did exactly what I wanted. I'm able to keep my 2 creatures on board and get 1 Lancelot out of the picture. Let's play a Scorn of Dark Alice because I want to see his hand, see what I'm dealing with. Unfortunately, now I see that he has no Resonators in his hands, just 3 Thunders and a Glimpse. Pay a blue to play a Cheshire Cat. Draw a couple of cards. I don't really need the Carmilla right now, but even if it doesn't get shuffled away, it'll be nice to have, just because I know for a fact he at most has 1 other Resonator that he's going to draw into. And I have that Stoning to Death in my hand to be able to deal with it. He takes both the 500s from the Hera, and then I pass turn to him. Caleb's hoping to try to get another Regalia at this point so he doesn't have another incidence of hitting a Ruler's Memoria. Swings in for 200, which I go ahead and take, putting him down to 36. Plays a Lancelot, which I stone it to death, puts me down to 34. Plays a second Lancelot, burning himself for 200 to be able to do it, and then I block that with Cheshire Cat. So now that Carmilla's gone away, but I'm feeling pretty comfortable with the idea of where I'm sitting right now. So I'm tapping for 1 more stone, just because I want to do a little bit more setting up to be able to flip Dark Alice for a little bit more potency. So I attack the Hera, or attack the Percival with Hera. He banishes in response. I attack him for 500 with Hera, and then I do Soul Hunt, thus making sure he gets rid of 1 of his cards, and I can discard the Scythe freely, and then just bring it right back to my hand by exiling a few cards. And I'm actually going to follow it up by replaying the Scythe again, because I don't want him to be in that position where he can just free cast and search and kind of replenish his hand. And I play Mephistopheles. So yes, I'm going to lose the Hera, but now he has to stare down a Mephistopheles, which he can't target, and without burning himself for a lot, he's got very few cards in his hand that really have much impact, and he can't flip over and immediately deal with it. So this puts Mephistopheles in a really good position. Just gonna filter. Doesn't really need that Flame King shout because he has no Resonator to back it up with. Plays the Barrier of Shadows. And then he passes. He could have called for a stone here. He actually catches it really quick here. He could have called for a stone or flipped. But it's okay. I followed up with a misplay of my own this turn in terms of missing some advantage. So I play that Cheshire Cat. Draw 2. Pay 3 to play a Schrodinger. And then I'm going to swing in the air for 15, which puts Caleb down to 300. So now I'm at a point where even if he targets Mephistopheles for anything, I have to sack off the Cheshire Cat, but even if he targets Mephistopheles for anything, he's going to burn himself to death, which pretty much puts me in a position where unless he can kill me this turn, next turn is lethal. Because there's no way he can, he would have to essentially crash 2 Lancelots and then some into my Mephistopheles in order to be able to deal with it, and it's got flying. He just really doesn't have an answer, and if he tries to target it to bounce it or thunder it or anything else, he's just done. So at this point I'm feeling really, really secure even without doing Dark Alice. But the thing that I did that I messed up was I forgot to tap for a stone. So he and I both completely forgot to tap our rulers those turns. So he's going to pop my Death Scythe and draw into a card. He grabbed the Death Scythe, and he's going to go ahead and flip. I'm going to draw and exile some cards to get my Death Scythe back. I'm going to exile 2 of his cards from his grave. I'm going to exile some more cards. I have to pay 200 life points to do that to get the dark. So now I have 5 cards removed. And I'm going to go ahead and do Judgment. This is just to kind of back it up in case he somehow randomly has something to deal with Mephistopheles. So I declare 2, which pops the Hera, and then I swing in, play Death Scythe, and then I swing in with Meph. At which point Caleb finishes the game to kill himself by targeting Mephistopheles with the bounce and ending the game. So there you have it, guys. Those are the 2 lists. The deck profile for the Black Dark Alice list will be up on Saturday. There's a link down in the description to Tavern's article with the list in it. And like, comment, and subscribe as always. And until next time, this is DMO73 signing off.